I attended an event that you call King's Council.
Yeah,
And during that weekend, you asked a question, man, that stayed with me for months.
yeah,
Okay. That question was something like this. You said, at what point did you realize you dropped your crown?
yeah,
That question stunned me
yeah.
because the truth of the matter is, I hadn't really thought about it. I had never thought of, I was so glad that I was not the first person to go to answer that question because I did not
Yes,
know how to answer it.
yes,
But the way I did eventually answer it was like this. I said, oh, well, let me first of all say, other brothers said something like, I realized I dropped my crown when this happened. I realized I dropped it when X happened, or they were able to identify a certain point in time when when they dropped the crown. My answer was, bruh, I didn't even realize I was wearing it.
Woo! Yes, sir. I remember that.
Remember
Yes,
that?
sir. Yes, sir.
And so I think what makes that answer so poignant is, again, going back to what we discussed earlier,
Yes,
identity
yes,
and purpose.
yes,
And I think if you don't understand or realize that you're wearing a crown, that you are a king, then you
yes,
don't even know you don't know how to go through life. You don't know how to find your purpose. You don't know what your assignment is. You don't know how to do any of these things because you don't even
yes,
know who you are, right?
yes, yes,
And so I think there are two entry points, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, into your program. We can do either come through Remand or you can go through the King's Council. That's an opportunity there. So I want to give you an opportunity to talk to them about what King's Council is. All right, man. Welcome to another episode of Be About It podcast. This is your boy Baraka. I'm so excited to be here today. I've got a wonderful, wonderful guest that I have waited, let's say, 9 months or so to get on the show, and he's finally here. So today's conversation is a special one for me personally. My guest is a veteran, a father, an author, former pastor, and the founder of an organization that has deeply impacted my own journey, the ReManned Project. Through his work, he has helped leaders confront one of the most important questions any person can ask: who am I and why am I here? His framework centers on what he calls MQ cubed, the mastery quotient, the integration of life, leadership, and legacy, not balancing them, but integrating them into a life of intentional impact. But like many leaders who help others find clarity, his own journey has been marked with real struggle, personal loss, transitions, and the kind of life experiences that force a person to confront themselves honestly. Today, we're here to talk about identity, leadership, failure, growth, and what it really means to build a life that matters. Please welcome the founder of the ReManned Project, Dr. Donald Morton. Welcome, my brother.
Man, would you go on the road with me? Just travel with me. That frankly, man, is one of the best introductions and understanding of the work that we do. So
Yes,
thank
sir.
you for having me, man. I really greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. As I said, as I kind of alluded to in the intro, met you about a year or so ago, and I have, after going through, I don't want to get too deep into it right now because I know we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but after going through a little bit of a period, a blackout period, what you call it, I really got to the point where I said, you know what? I think I want to have this brother on my show at some point. And so I've been looking forward to this for the last year, man. So thank you again so much for being here. Let's kind of get started, man. So before the Remand Project, before MQ Cubed, who were you becoming and what life experiences forced you to start questioning your identity and your purpose?
Yeah, man. Good question. Was a man whose life was incredibly fractured, right? Doing my best to be a good husband, being a
Hmm.
good father, being a good man, and yet couldn't find a place where all of it could work together. And when what happens ultimately is you spend your time trying to manage all that you have going on and you become exhausted, right? Trying to live a life that ultimately never comes together. And so, what I would suggest is I was a man trying to figure it out,
Hmm.
and at some point, hopefully, that I would figure it out and help other men through the entire process. But I will tell you that a fragmented life is an exhausting life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Man, that's awesome. So many leaders help others after they have walked through their own fires. What were some of the moments in your life that forced you to confront yourself honestly and rethink how you were living and leading?
Yeah, man. I've been married 4 times, Baraka.
Come on, brother.
And at some point, you got to figure out maybe it's me. right? You
Right.
can find someone to blame in the first one, and you can find somebody to blame in the second one. You can't find someone to blame when it becomes two, three, four, five, six. At some point,
We.
you got to really face yourself and ask yourself the question: what is your contribution to the dysfunction that you are experiencing?
Yeah.
And having been divorced the third time, and then in a new marriage, and then having challenges even in the new marriage, you begin to say, okay, like what is this really about? And where are the leaks in your own life that you can kind of find to plug?
Hmm.
And I found several of them, right? I would not have found them, though, if I had not developed in 2019 a framework that would help me to discover exactly what was going on in my life and then offer it to other brothers as well. So
Hmm.
I would suggest, man, having such volatile relationships um, were a key point in my life where I kind of figured out, man, you got some stuff that you're really dealing with, and you really need to figure it out before you not just harm someone else,
Yeah.
but before you harm yourself. Because at a point, it becomes less and less about the harm you are doing to others and more about the harm that you're doing.
Mm, great answer. I think that as we get into this, further into this, I think people, especially actually, I think starting at that point right there, I think some guy will be able to identify with what you just said and go, man, that sounds like me.
Yeah.
But we're going to get a little deeper into it. So you teach something very powerful through Remand, the MQ cubed, of the integration of life and leadership and legacy.
Yes.
For someone hearing this for the very first time, what does mastery actually look like in those three domains?
Yeah, so mastery looks like this pit to peak paradox, right?
Hmm.
This every man is on a journey, bro. It doesn't matter who he is, what side of the tracks he was born on. Every man is on a particular journey. Every man has what cinematicians call a character arc,
Hmm.
a journey that he is on. And the journey that he is on is one where he starts in a pit, a place of difficulty, a place of stress, a place of challenge. And that challenge and that pit is most likely in one of three what we call domains.
Hmm.
His life domain, which is his personal life, right? How does he handle his finances? How does he handle his personal sense of health and wellness? And how does he handle fun? I want to say this because there are brothers that are listening to us right now, man. And ReManned is probably one of the only organizations in the country, if there are others, I don't know what they are, that has an actual fun coach, a guy that
Mm.
is dedicated to making sure men enjoy their lives. So that's the life domain, right? The
Okay.
second is a leadership domain. How is he, not just in his personal life, but how is he as a leader? When we talk about leadership inside Remand, we're talking about leading a family. Who are
Hmm.
you as a husband? Who are you as a father? And what most organizations never talk about is who are you as a son to a vulnerable parent?
Come on,
Right?
man.
Because we have a responsibility in this circle of life to making sure our parents that we take care of them in the same way that they were responsible for taking care of us, right?
Absolutely. Right.
So that's the leadership domain. And then finally, the legacy domain is how am I as a business owner, a career man, a CEO, the C suite? How am I as a guy that is um, a janitor or a painter or a plumber? How am I in my career?
Hmm.
How am I as it relates to my community's contribution? And how am I as a philanthropist, someone that is giving back? Now, most organizations are really good at identifying a specific area, locking in on that, and saying, hey, this is what we're about. We're about fatherhood, we're about marriage, we're about finance. But this is what I've come to understand. We don't have the luxury of doing one thing at a time, right? We don't have the luxury of saying, hey, I'm gonna build this business right now, babe. I'm gonna put you off. I'm newly married, but I'm gonna put you off because I know I gotta grind right now, right?
Right.
And neither do we have the right to lock in totally on a wife and then say, I'm gonna put my business to the side or I'm gonna sacrifice my personal life. No, we have to do it all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
MQ3 or MQ cubed is about mastery around all of it. It is
Hmm.
finding that small and sometimes avoidable intersection of life, leadership, and legacy that we call integration. How do I become a man that lives up to all of the domains at the same time?
Right.
And center to that is this idea of mastery. Mastery happens in quadrants, right? And I don't have time to go through the quadrants, but what I will tell you is it starts at a place where I have an unconscious incompetence, right?
Mm.
So
Hmm.
when we were young, when we were children, bruh, we had an unconscious incompetence around driving a car. We didn't know how to drive a car, and we didn't even know that driving a car was a thing, right? It wasn't necessary part of our lives. And then we ultimately get to a place of unconscious competence. Unconscious competence is mastery when it is so deeply embedded in my subconscious that I can drive a car now with my knee while turning on the radio and eating a hamburger, right?
Right.
That's
Yes,
what
sir.
mastery looks like. Mastery looks like, integration looks like being a man who can integrate all parts of his life into being one man as a part of his subconscious, something about over and over again. It's
Hmm.
just who I am. And
Hmm.
so that's what MQ cubed is about. It's about a deeply embedded integration in the subconscious of a man that gives him the ability to master life, leadership, and legacy at the same.
Right, right. Man, I thank you for that. You kind of went, you jumped ahead of me just a little bit. I had a question later on about what the integration means, and I still will probably come back to it because you described it, but you didn't define it, and I want you
Yes,
to define it a little bit later.
yes.
So I want to just talk a little bit real quickly about how Remand has impacted me. Man, it was, again, in fact, it was a year ago this month that I
Wow.
met you. Yes. And I'm about 3.5 years divorced. I'm in this situation where this point in my life where I'm trying to figure out exactly where I am, what I'm to do next, my next steps, my next moves, really trying to identify who I am. I was on what I call this dual track after you and I got together. And that track was I was with my pastor, meeting with him every single Sunday
Yes,
or every single week for about 2 hours for about 3 years. And then I met
yes,
you. So the way I like to put this is he provided me with more of a spiritual track. Yours was more of a practical track.
yes,
And even though it has biblical undertone, because you've taken it from scripture,
yes,
but it wasn't being taught like a sermon.
yes,
Okay. And so you helped me identify my identity. You helped me identify my purpose more quickly than I was able to with my pastor.
yes,
And also, I told you when we first met, you had asked me, bro, how long does your pastor want you to be on this single track, being single? And I told you 8 to 10 years. That's his thing, especially for someone who had been married like me for 21 years. But now that I've gone through this ReManned Project process with you, I really believe that I know because it's been sped up
yes,
from 8 to 10 years to just 4 years. I am now
yes,
dating again,
yes.
and I'm ready. I'm out there. I'm from I've dated two young women thus far, and one thing I really love about what they've said to me is I love the way you lead, and I love your confidence, and I know that has only come because of you. So thank you, man.
Thank you,
Thank
man. And let me revisit something that you just said. It didn't come because of me. I gave you a framework. You did the work. What I love about Barack Obama is you are a success story for Remand because you did the work.
you.
So
Yeah.
there was never a time that you came to session, whether we were in the blackout period or whether we were in another portion of the work, that you didn't you never came unprepared to work, and you never came not having done the work that you were assigned,
Uh
right?
huh. Uh
And
huh.
so it's important to say that because there are a lot of guys that will take what you just said and think that just by virtue of the connection that they'll get the results that you got. No, the
Right.
results that you got because we provide framework that we know works, but you work that framework,
Yes, sir.
right? You actually did the work, and it's important that you realize the level of the level of success that you've experienced on your journey is based on the work of Barack Obama, not the work of Donald Morton. Like I can't do work for a man. I
That's
can
right.
support you while you do your work, but I can't do work for that man.
Exactly.
So I want to highlight how proud I am of you. I talk about you often. You are on the website. I talk about you often because knowing that the framework works for us and we continue to mess with it and tweak it, we've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in it.
Hmm.
We've
Hmm.
invested tens of thousands of hours in it
Yeah.
because we needed a framework that a guy could walk into and walk out differently. That's the
Hmm.
whole goal, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And you have been able to do that, man. So I, from the bottom of my heart, I salute you for being a shining example of what it means to do work
Yes, sir.
and what women have now recognized. Okay, here's a guy who finally knows somebody knows how to lead,
Yeah.
right? And so for every sister who has said, men ain't doing real work, here's an example of a brother who has done real work,
Hmm.
and the verifiable receipts are women who say, yeah, I love the way this guy.
Yeah, thank you for that, man. I really appreciate that. And here's something else too. To what you to your point about women who say they like a man who leads. Someone may ask, well, if you're doing so well in your leadership skills, man, why did your two relationships not work out? Well, here's what I have to say about to that. I went on Threads once and I made this post and I said, you know what? Intentionality can be intense. And a
Yeah,
woman really she thinks she knows what she wants until he shows up. And then she
absolutely.
goes, "Oh, wait a minute. I didn't know you were like this." Yeah. That's the reason it didn't work out because when I showed up being who I am now, they go, "Oh, well, this intentionality is a little too intense for me. I think I can't do this." And
Yeah,
so,
and it's good, man. It's good that you say that. One of the statistics that is a horrible marketing for Remand is that usually when men join Remand and they're not in relationship, or if they're in relationship and they begin to do the healing work, they begin to do the growth work, they begin to do the inner work, they oftentimes go back to the relationships that they're in and ask the question, why am I with you?
come on.
Right? And so obviously we can't put that on a flyer. We can't
Right.
we put that on the website, right?
Right.
That if you really want to break up in your relationship, join Remain. Like that's not
Yeah.
going to fly, right? But the truth of the matter is the choices that we make in a broken state are very different than the choices that we make when we grow up, right? When I was a child, I spake as a child,
Come on.
understood as a child, thought as a child.
Right.
When I became a man, I put away childish
All
things,
those childish
right?
things.
David, before he leaves, he transitions. He calls Solomon to him and he says to Solomon, he said, hey, my guy, listen to me, man. I'm about to go the way of the earth. I'm about to die. What I need from you is show yourself a man,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So clearly, there is an intent given by Spirit, by God, to make sure that we are proving ourselves men every single day.
Yes.
For those, there are people who say there is no unique definition for men. I believe that there is, and it's the one that I function from. Here's what a man is for me, bro. A man is a male who consistently demonstrates a comprehensive accountability to his creator and a responsibility for himself, his family, and his society. That is what a man is, right? A
That's good.
man,
Yes.
first of all, is a male. So we
Yes.
live in a society where we got to say that. A man is a
That's right.
male who consistently demonstrates, not every now and then, not in pockets,
Hmm.
consistently demonstrates a comprehensive accountability to his creator, not to his wife, not to his family, not to his boys, his
Yeah.
creator, the one that
Yeah.
made him, right? And
Yes.
is responsible for himself, his family, and his society. So I think that is what you are exhibiting, and that is what I'm proud of.
Excellent, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's what we all aspire to. And that I think well, those of us in the program, that's what we aspire to
Yeah,
at the end of the program to
yeah,
have mastered
yeah,
these three domains. So,
yeah.
man, I'm having a great time, Donald. Thank you so much for being here, bro.
Thank you,
I
bro.
think this is going to be very impactful for anybody who listens or watches. So let me ask you this: for those who are meeting you for the first time, who is Donald Morton today?
Yeah, I am an integrated man. I am a man who stands at the intersection of life, leadership, and legacy and growing
Hmm.
every single day. I am a man who I borrowed this from Keon and Shawnee Henderson's podcast.
Okay.
I'm grown and growing,
Okay. Yes.
grown, right, and growing. I'm a man obsessed with growth.
Mm-hmm.
It is my love language to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that not only am I growing, but everything around me is growing. I'm a
Okay.
husband to Marla Michelle. I am a father to three children, all of which are adults, a vice president of a bank, an LPN. My oldest son just graduated
Yes, he did.
from school,
My
nursing
man.
school, as
Congrats to
an
him
LPN.
again.
And then my youngest son is a nationally renowned award-winning DJ. My children are doing incredibly well. And let me say
Yes.
this, man.
Yeah.
I live my life now for one express purpose. This is my call now. That my children, my wife, my nieces and nephews, my sister will never ever have to look outside of me for an example of a man.
Mm. Woo, say that again, bro.
Right?
Yes.
That no one around me will have to look outside of me to have an example of a man,
Yes,
right?
sir.
And so
Yes.
it used to be about other things. I think we grow and we evolve and we find different whys.
Yeah.
But my why today is when my daughter is looking for the man that she should marry, then I want her to have an example before. When my sons are looking for an answer to a question of how they respond, I want them to
Mm-hmm.
be able to say, how would dad respond? Remember
Mm-hmm.
back in the day, there was this, what would Jesus do?
Yes, those bands.
Yeah, those bands, right? That was a reminder to think about what Jesus would do. Well,
Yes.
Jesus ain't here. I am.
Right.
So I want my family, those that are close to me, to be able to ask the question, what would Donald do?
Come
What
on.
would an example of a man do in this moment? And
Yeah.
that's my why now.
That's awesome. And I think that's as fathers, I think we should aspire to do the same
Yeah,
thing. We should definitely, and as leaders, I think not just as fathers, but as leaders in whatever facet of life we find ourselves in, whether it be in life, leadership, or legacy, we should
yeah,
all aspire to have want to do that same thing, to have people look at us and go, "That's what a leader looks like. That's what a mentor
yeah,
looks like."
yeah, bro.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So when people hear veteran, when they hear pastor, when they hear author or founder, those are our titles, right? But who are you? Who is Donald Morton at the core?
Yeah. I am spiritual. I am accountable.
Mm,
I am ethical.
come on now.
I am masterful, right? So, and I am above all of that, Baraka, or encompassing all of that. I'm free.
Ooh. I want you to expound on that.
I'm free because at the very height of the emotional continuum, right?
Uh
The
huh.
emotional continuum has at its bottom fear and depression, and it
Uh huh.
has at its center contentment and boredom, and it has at its top love and freedom. And so, what most people don't know is the opposite of love is not hate, it's fear. The opposite of depression is not happiness, it's freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a man, I want to live a life that encompasses being free to be, do, and have whatever I want.
Yeah. Yeah.
So every single day, I wake up free.
Mm-hmm.
I'm building a business to create freedom.
Mm-hmm.
I want a marriage that's free. I want to raise children that are free. And I think at the end of the day, man, it comes out in the fact that as black men in this country, we are born out of struggle,
Yeah.
born out of the history of the enslavement
Yes.
of men, right?
The
Separated
remnant
from
of
our
it.
wives and families, and being used to produce labor and to produce children and to produce as bucks. We weren't really humans, right? And
Yeah.
so every
Or so they
single
said.
day, right, as they said, right? So every single day in me, there's this call to be free. And
Yeah.
I measure and view everything that is requested of me through the lens of, will it produce freedom or will it restrict freedom? And if it
Mm,
restricts freedom, it's a definite no for me. But if
gotcha.
it produces freedom, then it's a yes. So out of all of the things that I've said, bro, the one to be remembered for, who is Donald Moore, he free.
Mm, excellent. Excellent. Another thing that I think we should all work toward wanting to be
Yeah. Yeah,
especially even if it happens to be that we have to go to a job every day. How can we how can we figure out how to be free
yeah,
on that
yeah,
job, or how
yes,
can we figure out how to free ourselves from employment and
yes,
become self-employed
yes,
and aspire to be an employer of employees,
yes,
you know. So I
yes.
think that that's something we should all look forward to doing, man. Early on in my intro, I mentioned briefly that you're a veteran, so you have military experience. You also were a pastor, so you have some ministry experience, and you have other responsibilities early on. But where do you think your leadership journey actually began for you?
Did my leadership journey begin? So I'm gonna tell you a funny story, man. I am a second generation pastor.
Okay.
My mother pastored for over 40 years.
Mm, mm, mm.
And so I grew up in a house watching my mom be in charge. My dad wasn't really in charge. He thought he was
Okay.
in. My dad wasn't in charge, right? And so my mom would always have to kind of curtail leadership for me. I'm not to make this about zodiac signs, but I'm a Leo. So
Okay.
so I'm used to leadership. I'm used to being out front. I'm a bit of a control freak. So what a
Mm,
part of what I was just talking with my son and my daughter-in-law about.
okay.
Bit of a control freak. And so I watched my mom be in charge, and I knew that there was something in me that said that should be you. Like you, you should be in charge.
Okay.
And so I remember a time, Baraka, no cap, man. I remember a time where I was the obviously son of my mom at church that she pastored, and I remember firing the choir. I told the choir, y'all not singing Sunday. All right, I was a young cat too, man. I'm saying, yeah, y'all not singing Sunday. So
Okay.
they went and told my mom. My mom was like, son, I was like, yes, ma'am. And she said, you can't fire the choir. And so this is what I asked genuinely, bro. I can't. Like, why?
Yeah.
I'm in charge. Like in my mind, this is a family business. In
Yeah.
charge, right? So that watching my mom and how she operated so skillfully as a leader. Like she was very skillful as a leader. And then I was in the United States, a Marine Corps. Another funny story. I was in the United States Marine Corps for
Simplify.
12 weeks. Semper Fi, right? 12 weeks until they found out the boy couldn't swim.
No.
Couldn't pass a Baraka. I could not pass swim crawl. And so my recruiter that got me in
Yeah.
told my mother and I when I enlisted, I said, hey, I can't swim. I'm letting you know I can't swim. And the recruiter said, don't worry about it. It's good. You'll be all right. And so he said, we don't even do swim qual like that anymore. So you're going to be fine. So I woke up the next morning and they said, 0800 swim qual.
Mm.
Yo, Baraka, if you're in the military, I raise my hand.
Uh-huh.
Instructor. So what Maggedy cussing me out? Out here, right? He's cussing me out. And I said, yo, my recruiter said, and as soon as I said my recruiter said, they bust out laughing.
He
Oh,
got
we
on
got
you.
you now. We got you. You listen to your recruiter, you dumb.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And so I reached the end of the road and I just couldn't pass swim qual, man. I would throw up in the water.
Wow.
They push you off the platform.
Yeah.
It's not swim instruction. It's swim or die, right? And I couldn't pass. So they said to me at the end, if you will go all the way back in training, then we will let you pass. I said, oh no. It was such a difficult journey inside the Marine Corps. Came home for about a month and a half, 2 months, went right back into the United States Army, won Soldier of the Cycle, won several of awards. So I was not only Soldier of the Cycle, but I led my platoon. I learned leadership in several facets of the journey, right? So my mom, military, I have a black belt in Goseru Goju.
Okay.
I had a whole class, even in my mom's church. I had a whole choir named after me. I was the youth pastor. And then, of course, pastoring my own church. My journey has been in leadership since
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
a young boy. And
Yeah.
so I shout out to my mom who's no longer with us. But that woman put me in a position to hone leadership skill, let me make significant mistakes that she was able to clean up, right? But from a very young age, man, I was in leadership position.
Okay. Well, the kind of Answers my next question. I was going to ask you, when did you first realize that you were called to leadership? Do you kind of remember when you were actually? Because I know you've been in leadership, you've done some things in leadership, but when do you feel like you were actually called to be the leader of leaders?
Yeah, I don't know that I remember that. And I don't know that was ever a moment like that.
Okay.
If we're looking for a moment that would seem sacred almost, right? Like an epiphany kind of moment, there
Right.
wasn't one for me.
Okay. Okay.
There were moments where I recognized leadership had to take place, and if leadership didn't take place, then things were going to fall apart. And
Hmm.
I've always been willing to step into a role. I've always been confident enough to step into a role, but I've never looked at a singular moment where I said, I believe I'm called to lead. It was always done out of a need for somebody to step into something that could calm the moment, grow the
Yeah.
moment,
Yeah.
squelch the moment. And I think in those moments, whether it be the military, whether it be leading a dojo, and whether it be military, right? Those are places that I honed skill, but I
Hmm.
don't know that those are places that I recognize myself as a leader. I just knew that it was something that had to be done.
Got you. I think that's a perfect segue too for this. This is a lot of leaders who guide others, and I think you've said this before too. I've heard you say this before. A lot of leaders who guide others didn't get there through comfort. They go through
Absolutely.
the fire. They go through their own
Absolutely.
kinds of fire. So, what are some of the seasons in your life that forced you to confront yourself honestly?
Yeah, man. You know what? I'm kind of really pissed off with God, right? Because
Okay.
I think have you ever been there, man? Like where you just kind of sit back and you look at your journey and you almost get pissed. Like, man, I've been through more than most.
Yeah. Yeah.
So whether it's three divorces and a new marriage, whether it's being hit with cancer in my 40s,
Mm,
whether it's my father leaving me three separate occasions, one emotionally, another geographically, and then finally eternally,
okay.
whether it was being locked out of a church that I pastored, the very church that I grew up in,
Yeah.
whether it was the pain and discomfort of my mother and I, and our relationship was very nuanced. She was the single most phenomenal person in the world to me, but we didn't
Hmm.
always agree. And because we didn't always agree, we clashed,
Yeah.
usually on church stuff. Whether it was times where, through my own ignorance and immaturity, made decisions that landed me on the front page of magazines for doing dumb stuff, or cheating on my ex-wife, and it going viral, and now books being written about it and plays being done about it. Now a movie is out about it. Like,
All about
I
it.
have experienced challenge after challenge after challenge after
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
here's what I would tell you. As the older folks say, Baraka, I wouldn't take nothing for my journey, man.
Good.
Right?
Yeah.
Was not done to me. All of that was done for me.
Hmm.
I remember sitting on the side of the bed with tears running down my face at the day that they called me into a meeting and fired me as the pastor of that church, and I cried. And I remember God saying to me, I never told you to pastor that church in the first place.
Okay.
Right? So where
Yeah.
I was looking for comfort, and to your point, here's God giving me discomfort all over again, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And yet I've learned that the emergence of Remain and the work that we are doing literally around the world now would have never happened had they not locked me out of that church. In
Yeah.
fact, here's what God said to me. The other thing that he said to me that really calmed me down. He
Okay.
said, if you want to be mad at somebody, don't be mad at them. Love them. They don't know, but what they did on my.
That's right.
Because if you didn't get locked out, you would still be there fighting to do something I've never asked you to do. Right? So all of these series of things have happened so that it forged me, right, into being
Hmm.
the man that I am today, to be able to serve Baraka Barnes, to be able to serve Bucci and Walter and Leroy and Dwight and Ray and others who are called to this work. And so I'm grateful. I can't say, because it would be disingenuous of me to say that I've enjoyed the journey all the time. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The journey ain't enjoyable, man.
No.
Yeah, it's not enjoyable at all. But I hate when coaches say, learn to fall in love with the journey, man. I ain't never gonna fall in love with the journey. But I
Yeah.
respect it though,
You respect it.
right? I respect the
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah.
And I see in hindsight, obviously, everything that has happened and why it has happened and why it was necessary for me to be the man that I am today. So I
Mm-hmm.
respect it, I honor it,
Mm-hmm.
and I leverage it to be able to serve brilliant men like yourself.
Hey, man, I appreciate that, man. And a great, wonderful job you are doing, of course. Not
Thank
only
you,
with
man.
just me, but everybody else that I've seen in the
Thank
groups
you.
that we've been in, man. And the other brothers that I've met along the way, of course, some awesome, awesome brothers. The brotherhood is amazing. It's real.
Yes, sir.
You kind of touched on it just a minute ago, but I want to just kind of, for clarification purposes, ask in those seasons that you were in, all those different challenges that you've had, those different experiences that you had, what would be the difference between who you were performing as and
Yeah.
who you actually were?
Yeah. Yeah. So let me go back to something I just said a moment ago and tie the bow, right? People ask me all the time, would you ever go back to pastoring? Hell no.
Mm,
Absolutely not.
mm-hmm,
Right.
mm-hmm.
And they say, why? And I say this, Baraka, to your point, that pastoring was the single most inauthentic time,
All right, man.
right?
Let's talk about it. Yeah.
You have to, as a pastor, at some level. I know guys that do it incredibly well and that are authentically themselves, like my spiritual father. He is who he is.
Mm-hmm,
Um, I never mastered that. I was good at providing what the church needed me to provide at the time that needed me to provide it, even if it flew in the face of what I genuinely believe,
mm-hmm,
right? And so, because of that, the difference between me now, the difference between me then, is the God that sits before you now is full throatedly himself, fully authentic. That there are times that I'm gonna cuss a little bit, I've done less of that as of late. But there are times where I'm going to get in a man's chest. There are times that I know how to pull back, but there's never a time in my life now at this, what my wife would call a big age, at 56 years old, where I'm ever going to be anything other than Donald Morton. And whoever can rock with that, cool. We can rock out for the rest of our lives. So if you
mm-hmm,
can't rock with that, and if you require me to be something other than who I am with you, then we need to depart, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I have spent the majority of my life being inauthentic, and I refuse to spend another day being so. So if that means like this work that I'm doing with men,
Yeah.
this is who Donald Morton is. It's what Donald Morton does. It's
Mm-hmm,
what I've been called to do.
mm-hmm,
There's a reason why I don't work with women. Not because I don't think women aren't valuable. I think that they are. But I have a unique call to a unique group of guys that would not otherwise reach the levels that they are supposed to reach without this work that I'm doing, right? And so authenticity, transparency, being uniquely Donald is a gift. And for many, it's a challenge because when you fully understand who you are and when you fully understand why you are or why you exist, it is difficult for people to swallow, particularly people who have spent the majority of their lives being someone that someone else asked them to be, doing something that someone else asked them to do.
yeah.
When you decide to live your life that way, you're not free. And remember, a moment ago, you asked the question about who I am. I'm free,
Yeah.
right? And I'm free because I don't have any aspirations of being, doing, or having anything other than that which is in perfect alignment with who I am as.
Absolutely. And I think something else too. We're not going to go through the whole arc, but I think
Yeah,
one of the primary pieces of your arc is the first part of it, and we haven't talked about it at all. But it's SQ, and it stands
yeah,
for spiritual quotient. And the
yes,
two elements of that thing is knowing who you are.
yeah,
Well, I could really stop right there,
yeah,
and knowing what your purpose. But I think when we're talking about authenticity and we're talking about not being someone that you are or doing something that you weren't actually called to do, I think one of the only ways to do that or to avoid doing that is by knowing who you are.
absolutely,
Yeah,
100%, man. There's most brothers. This is not shade to brothers, right? No one took the time to walk us through
I know it.
understanding who we are, right?
Right,
And so
right.
most men are just kind of wandering through life. doing the best that they can, doing what I call letting the tail wag the dog,
Yes.
waking up without a sense of identity and purpose, not because they're bad cats, but because no one took the time to help them to discover,
Right.
unveil,
Right.
excavate their real identity, right?
Right.
And so identity for most men, as it really should in the beginning, most of our identity comes from our parents,
Mm-hmm.
right? Our sense of
Mm-hmm.
values come from our parents. If you're gonna live in this house, you're gonna go to church. If you're gonna live in this house, you're gonna serve Jesus, right?
Yes.
Those
Yes.
we need you to tell the truth. Go to school, get an education. Those are values that our parents taught us growing up. The challenge with that is that those values were only designed to be temporary. They were not designed to be permanent. There would come a time for every man to be able to ask this burning question, who am I?
Mm-hmm.
Not who my parents want me to be. Who am I? And believe it or
Who am I?
not, there can be a friction
Mm-hmm.
between who you are and who your parents want you to be. There can be a friction between what you're called to actually by the creator and what your parents think you should be doing. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why, to your point, which is a brilliant point, before I really get into this second part of SQ, which is what am I called to do, I got to first solidify who I am. Because
Man.
if I embark upon what it is I believe I'm called to do, and I don't have a self concept that is anchored, I can be talked out of what God is asking me to do. So at
Yes.
the very moment that I run up against a challenge doing what God has asked me to do, then I'm going to start questioning my own sense of identity. Instead of anchored in my identity, I know God called me to do this, and I'm clear about who I am, so nobody can talk me out of it. Like no one's going to talk me out of what it
Mm-hmm.
is. So
Yeah.
SQ is really about conviction. It's about anchoring a sense of belief about identity and about purpose, but it's really about anchoring a belief that can hold even when I'm under extreme pressure. Because
Yes.
that break. Most men break when they think they understand who they are and they begin to embark upon what God has asked them to do. And then when that wind blows, right? Great is the fall of that house because it was anchored anything substantive.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. Exactly. And now I kind of want to go into. We kind of talked about the arc a little bit, but we don't
Yes.
know. They don't know where what arc comes up under. Arc comes
Right.
up under the ReManned Project, right?
Yes.
AKA ReManned.
Yes.
So out of those experiences that we talked about a few minutes ago, the things that you had to go through, the things that some men have to go through, the ReManned Project was born at some point, right?
Yes.
So what problem were you trying to solve when you created ReManned?
And great question. So the character arc is born in 2019 when I built ReManned. So it is true that that the character arc is the signature science that all men under ReManned work through, right? That is the proprietary process that we use. It is uniquely Donald Morton's trademark.
Okay.
Is my proprietary process. Is not ReManned is owned by Donald Morton. The character arc is owned by Donald Morton. That's an important distinction to make
Okay.
because when I die, the name ReManned, the business ReManned, the character arc, all of that gets passed down, right?
Gotcha.
It is intellectual property that gets passed down.
Mm-hmm.
What causes me to develop ReManned is one thing, and you mentioned it a moment ago. It's the need for connection, it's the need for brotherhood, it's the need for a space where only men gather. Let's talk about history, right? And when I talk about history, you will be able to shake your head in affirmation.
Mm-hmm.
There have been organizations in times past in history that were created for specifically for the growth of men.
Yeah.
The YMCA was created for men. Young Men's Christian Association was its original name. Now the YMCA is for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's for women, it's for children, primarily for children,
Exactly.
right?
Because
It's for everybody,
I thought that Y
right?
was for youth.
Yeah, it's for young. It's for young. Right. It's almost like it should be for youth, but it's not. It's for young men's Christian. They've changed the C now, so it's not Christian anymore. It's something
Okay.
else. But it was.
Okay.
It originally began Young Men's Christian Association. Now
Okay.
it's for
I
everybody.
didn't know that.
There are no more uniquely spaced There are no more unique spaces just for men. Look at the Boy Scouts of America,
Right.
right? No longer Boy Scouts of America. Now it's for everybody. You got young girls in the Boy Scouts of America, right? So there was no uniquely male spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why that's important, bruh, is because as all of us, we need to have this vertical connection between us and our creator, right? That's an important. But we need to also toe this horizontal line. This connection between brothers is also sacred. There is a sacredness that happens when brothers connect.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to create an organization that was by and for men.
Got it.
And you'll hear my wife often laugh about that Negro don't even let me in. Yeah, yeah, right. So my wife used to be my assistant years ago,
Okay. Okay.
and I introduced her to the community we had on Facebook at that time. It's no longer a Facebook community online, but we have another community we can talk about later. And I introduced her to everybody. I let her come in. She was probably in for about 15, 30 minutes, saying hi to everybody, letting everybody know who she was. 30 minutes later, she was kicked out.
Mm.
So she called me and she's like, yo, I don't have access to the community. Can you let me back in? I was like, no, ma'am. She's like, what? I was like, no, ma'am. That was only for introduction purposes. And
Mm-hmm.
here's the reason. Anytime you inject a woman into the process, the organization it ceases to be what it was originally intended to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
if you think about it, Young Men's Christian Association introduced women. Now everybody can go, and they have their own Young Women's Christian Association.
Okay.
Right? So they get the best of ours, and they have their own. Scouts had Girl Scouts, but they didn't want just one Girl Scouts. They wanted ours as well.
Yes.
So I am incredibly protective of ReManned being a uniquely and solely male space.
That's good.
Not because I'm trying to keep women out, but
Mm-hmm.
because men deserve a space where they can lay it all down without
Just
the
for men.
feeling of being embarrassed or anything like that.
Yeah.
No judgment here. Let's just
Right.
lay it all down so that we can cut down on the rate of suicide for black men, so that we can
Mm-hmm.
cut down on the rate of divorce. Because if men get an opportunity to address their issues in the sacred community of other men, they don't do as much of the nonsense that we do on the outside when there's a brother that's willing to hear me. So
Mm-hmm.
I will always keep it for as long as I'm alive. And I'm thinking about putting it in the laws of it so that even after I'm gone, this is a male space that will remain a male space, no women allowed, not because I'm against women, but because I'm for men.
Amen. And that's the way it should be. If it starts off as a men's thing, let's keep it a man's thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So speaking of men, what is the one thing that most men misunderstand about identity and purpose?
Yeah, I think the first thing that men misunderstand is that what and who they have been is what and who they have been created to be.
Mm.
Two separate things.
Yeah.
What and who they have been is based on environment, is based on training, it's based on a series of things that they've been taught, instructions, revelations.
Mm-hmm.
But who you've been created to be can be very different.
Yeah.
Right. And so until you did the work of excavating and really diving deep into the work of who am I, it's not that you weren't a good guy, and it's not that your parents didn't raise you right. It wasn't anything like that. In fact, they did. They did a great job. But there comes a point where a man has to ask himself for himself, why am I here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
That's
because the idea of meaning is such a foreign idea, right? Viktor Frankl writes about meaning, the power of meaning, when he was in the concentration camps, and the only thing that kept him alive was a sense of meaning. And what most brothers don't understand is that the other thing that most brothers don't understand, Baraka, is that some of the things that they are experiencing ain't even their fault.
yeah. That part.
It's epigenetics,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's stuff that was passed down from generation to generation. And even though it's passed down and it's not their fault, it's still their responsibility. You can't blame, right? You still have to confront it. You still have to fix it. You still have to
Yeah.
deal with it.
Yeah.
So I think the two things that men misunderstand is that who they've been and what they've think they've been called to is not necessarily true. And then the other thing that I would challenge you and I and the listeners to understand is that George Bush made a statement years ago. Can't believe I'm quoting George Bush, but
Right.
let me quote George Bush, right? Because he made a statement when he was talking about no child left behind. That's really true. He said that most of us function in what's called the soft bigotry of low expectation,
Yeah.
right? Which
Yeah.
which simply means that for black males, no one thinks we can achieve. So what we do is we lower the bar.
Mm,
Remember Tony Evans? It's one of my favorite preachers in the world, man. Tony
yeah.
Evans was my guy, right? He has since retired. Tony Evans was my guy. And he talks about in one of his books how his son, I think Jonathan, right? His son was trying to dunk the basketball and he
Hmm.
could never do it. He was too short at the time to dunk the basketball. And he remembered one day he was in his office running in and said, Dad, I dunked the basketball. So Tony says, Really? So he said, Come see, come see. And so he runs, boom, dunks the basketball. And Tony was like, he said, Dad, you don't seem excited. And he tells the janitor of the building, raise the goal back up to where the goal is supposed to be.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So that is what's happened with black males, man. What has
Mm,
happened is they've so lowered the bar that we think we're achieving. What would happen if we raise the bar and stop functioning by the soft bigotry of low expectations? Don't lower the
yes.
bar,
Yes.
raise the bar and call us up higher, right?
Hmm.
Do
Hmm.
that, and I think we'll see a significant success rate with our brother.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. I love that story, and I had never heard that quote before. But
Yeah.
something you said a moment ago, man, at the top of your answer there is a word that I think is important to go back and revisit, and that is excavation.
Yes.
I think without that excavation, man, there's no way we could actually. How can we raise the bar if we don't
Yeah.
get to the bottom of where we are and what
Yeah.
created us, what helped
Yeah.
us to get to, what helped
Yeah.
shape us?
Yeah.
And I think, and that's another thing, another reason that I really appreciate your program, man, and how that's actually where we start.
Yeah.
We start
Yes.
at excavation.
Yes.
And because I think before you do that, my pastor said something. He said, you can't expect tape to stick to a dirty surface.
So true. That's
Isn't that
so
right?
true,
There's nothing wrong with the tape.
That's right.
Something wrong with the surface.
That's right.
So you got to clean that surface off before you can
That's
allow that
right.
tape to stick. And so the
That's
same
right.
thing here, before you can actually go deep and build this
Yes.
man that we're trying to become, you got to
Yes.
excavate all the other junk. You got to get rid of
Yes.
it. You got to
Yes.
relearn, you got to unlearn and
Yes.
relearn,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
Man.
absolutely, man. There's a scripture in Jeremiah that actually talks about that, right? It talks about that before you can actually plant and build, you must first pull up and uproot,
That's right.
right? And so,
Yes.
what most guys, to your pastor's point, which is a brilliant quote, right, is very practical. So what most guys are not able to do is to confront all of the stuff that we call inside remain cleansing. Let's
Hmm.
let's really dig up, and it's a painful part of the process. It's probably the most disliked part of the process because it forces us to really dig up stuff that we've suppressed and we don't really want to talk about fatherhood stuff, motherhood wounds, relationships, all the stuff that
Confront, yeah.
we
Confront those old
this hurt.
relationships.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So if we don't deal with that stuff, then we do exactly what your pastor said, and that is we are attempting to make something stick, but the surface is so dirty,
Yeah.
right? So our goal is to clean that so that
Hmm.
everything that you're building will last. It will not last if you don't do the cleansing work.
It
It just
won't.
doesn't happen.
It won't. It won't. It can't. It just
Yeah,
it's not designed that way. So,
yeah,
all right. So, man, we got a lot of questions. I'm almost to
yes,
the
sir.
end, man. We're doing a great job. Hang in there for me.
Yes, sir. Of course, man. I'm here for the long haul.
All right. All right. So, if someone listening right now feels lost or disconnected from who they are supposed to be, where should they begin?
Remain.
Come on.
Yeah, remain.
Exactly.
And the reason is, again, and I don't say this to brag. I say this because it's true. We spend a lot of time. You have just gone through the character arc certification, and you are now a certified character arc facilitator. And one of the things that you said at the end of that training was, "This is a lot. Like this is a lot." And so what brothers need to understand as we kind of look at the work is the beginning to understand the who am I and why am I. That work takes work and it takes a design. Like we're not a haphazard organization. Everything is strategic. Everything is done decently and in order. And so most organizations are not interested in the complete man. Most
Mhm.
organizations are interested in a facet of the man. And
Mhm.
I don't knock that. I think that's important, right? So when we start talking about fatherhood, there are brothers that specialize in that thing. And we have a coach in man, Dr. Kelly Little. Kelly Little is our fatherhood coach, right? He
Okay.
does nothing but eat, sleep, and dream fatherhood. So
Mhm.
I don't eat, sleep, and dream fatherhood, right? All my kids are grown.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I have someone on the team that eats, sleeps, and drinks fatherhood. I've got somebody on the team that eats, drinks, and sleeps finance. Someone that eats, sleeps, and drinks fun, right? So
Yes.
so the reason why I say that is invested tons of money and tons of time perfecting a process that works. We are not in the business of playing with men's lives to try to see if this works. People don't pay me now. Now, this is what we need to acknowledge for people. It costs a pretty penny to work with me. All right,
Absolutely.
a pretty penny to work with me for a couple of reasons. One is we want to weed out anybody that ain't going to do the work. When you pay the money, a part of the reason why you showed up to do the work is I'm gonna get my money's worth. This
You
is
doggone
not.
straight.
Yeah, this is not $100. I didn't pay this man $100, right?
No, right.
So the reason why Remand is um, an elite organization is because we take no excuses. We take your lives seriously, and we want to see you win. There are three things that have to happen for every man to be successful. He has to have a coach, he has to have a system, and he has to have a community. If he doesn't have those three things, he will struggle. Remand provides a coaching core that is solid and 5 star. It requires a system that is second to none. It has predictable results, and it has a community of brothers that are going to hold you accountable. If you can't win inside Remain, you can't win.
Mhm.
Now, we ain't always kind to you. We ain't always gonna hold your hand and rub your back. It ain't that kind
Right.
of program. So if you
Right.
need somebody to tell you you're doing good when you're not doing good, then this ain't the program for
This
you.
ain't it.
But if you're a guy who says, I genuinely want to see my life transform, then we're the level of organization that you genuinely want to invest in yourself to be a part.
That's it. The investment. That's why you want
Yeah,
to make the investment in yourself. It is
yeah,
absolutely worth it. I can attest to it. I've already told you a little bit earlier, fellas. Those of you who are watching, who have been with us all the way up until this point, I appreciate you for staying with us so long. We're almost done, but I want to get into something. This last portion of this interview, man. This is the reason that I titled this episode what I did. Where is your crown, King?
mm,
Last year, this I attended an event that you call King's Council.
yeah,
And during that weekend, you asked a question, man, that stayed with me for months.
yeah,
Okay. That question was something like this. You said, at what point did you realize you dropped your crown?
yeah,
That question stunned me
yeah,
because the truth of the matter is, I hadn't really thought about it. I had never thought of I was so glad that I was not the first person to go to answer that question because I did
yes,
not know how to answer it.
yes,
But the way I did eventually answer it was like this. I said, oh, well, let me first of all say, other brothers said something like, I realized I dropped my crown when this happened. I realized I dropped it when X happened, or they were able to identify a certain point in time when it actually, when they dropped their crown. My answer was, bruh, I didn't even realize I was wearing one.
Ooh, yes, sir. I remember that.
Remember
Yes, sir.
that?
Yes, sir.
And so I think what makes that answer so poignant is again going back to what we discussed earlier,
Yes,
identity
yes,
and purpose.
yes,
And I think if you don't understand or realize that you're wearing a crown, that you are a king, then you
yes,
don't even know you don't know how to go through life. You don't know how to find your purpose. You don't know what your assignment is. You don't know how to do any of these things because you don't even
yes,
know who you are, right?
yes, yes,
And so I think there are two entry points, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, into your program. We can do either come through remand or you can go through the King's Council. That's an opportunity there. So I want to give you an opportunity. to talk to them about what King's Council is
Yes.
and tell them when it's coming and
Yes.
make an invitation, give them an invitation to King's Council.
Yeah. So thank you for that, man. Really, King's Council is about, it's a 3-day process, right? It's a 3-day live event that at the end of that time, we make available entrance into the what is now called the ReManned Reset, right? It was at the time that you went through that program, it was called the ReManned,
Mm-hmm.
because we wanted to give guys kind of a toe in the water kind of example of what it's like to be live and do the work live, to do the soul work, the deep inner work, and to do so live and in the company of other brothers. And so it's coming up again in June of this year. We'll have two more. We'll have June, and then we'll have one in September, and we most likely will have another one in December. So there will be 3 of them, and they will continue to increase in price as the year goes on. So it's important that every man lock into the June one. Is also the time where Remand Day is on June the 1st of every year. It's literally a holiday in Delaware. It's not just a figurative holiday. It is codified in the archives of City Council, Newcastle County Council, and the state of Delaware. The governor has declared June 1st Remand Day. And so it is a time where we get a chance to be around other brothers. It is a time that we get a chance to deal with deep reflection. It is a time where we do some physical activity as well. So it's not just deep emotional work, it's also physical work, because AQ is really about putting yourself under pressure. It is intentionally submitting to and surrendering to pressure. And so in June, yes, sir.
We hadn't actually talked about AQ yet. We talked about SQ, we talked about MQ.
Yes.
So what is AQ? Go ahead.
AQ is a man's adversity quotient, his capacity to handle pressure. Because here's what happens: if a man does not understand identity and purpose, he doesn't anchor that, and he doesn't expand his capacity to handle pressure. That's what failure happens.
Mm-hmm.
Failure happens in his inability to handle pressure.
That's right.
Most men shrink in the sight of pressure, avoid pressure, and the truth of the matter, blame for pressure. But the truth of the matter is that most men need to be able to expand their capacity to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
Pressure doesn't change, it actually grows, right? So that's the reason why we work with married businessmen who have families, developing a business, and also trying to keep his personal life on track. That's a lot of pressure. There's a different level of pressure for you and I as businessmen. Like, you're working, you have a business, you got daughters, like, and which one do you lay down?
Right.
You can't. Which one do you lay down, right? So
Exactly.
we teach men to expand their capacity to handle the pressure instead of avoiding the pressure, abdicating the throne, and not owning up to the responsibility of being the men we're called to be.
Exactly.
So that's what King's Council Weekend is about. It's a 3-day live event that is designed to give you a bit of an understanding of what's going to happen over the next 90 plus days that will take men through the reset process. And it's a dope program. I'm really excited about not just what it's been, but what it's becoming.
Yeah, it's good. It was a great program for me. I
Yeah.
enjoyed not just something that was mental, but it was also physical.
Yeah.
But I think it's important for us to 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 um, to exercise both the mental and the physical body, because I think that's one of the things that we learn as a part of the adversity quotient, or AQ. We got to take care of our bodies,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
and when you one of the things I love about the AQ portion is when adversity hits, do you quit or do you pivot?
Yes.
And that's what
Yeah.
we have to learn how to. That's the question you
Yeah.
got to ask during the AQ process, right? Okay. So
Absolutely.
real quickly, I want to go back to I asked you about the crown. Why do you think it's so important for somebody to identify when he dropped that crown, when he might have dropped that crown? And why is it important for a man to wrestle with that question?
Yeah, it's important to wrestle with the question. I want to answer the second part first. It's important to wrestle with the question because I can't tell you how many men that I meet that, to your answer that you gave, which was so brilliant, many men don't even know that they're carrying one.
Hmm.
So we walk down the street and we call one another kings. Hey, king. Good
That's
morning,
right.
king. Everybody's a king, right? It's a
Right.
fad. But most men don't feel like one
Hmm.
because we live. I mean, think about it, man. Most monarchs that are males get celebrated. When's the last time that you felt celebrated by this country? Right? When's the last time that someone actually called you a king and did things consistent with making sure you felt like one? Right? So it becomes important to wrestle with the question because our identity dictates our action. Right? So on the other side of who we are, it frames the actions that we take. And if I never wrestle with who I am, and it's my actions will always be skewed. And my subconscious is responsible for 95% of my actions.
Wow. Yeah.
95% of my actions
Hmm.
are born out of my subconscious.
Hmm.
Only 5% are born out of a conscious reality, which means that the decisions that I'm making, the actions that I'm taking are coming out of automatic, they're on autopilot.
Exactly. Because of things you've
So
learned.
the results and receipts that I'm getting are based on an inner reality. And if I don't interrupt that, then I'm going to continue to get what I've always been getting.
Yeah.
So I've got to consciously interrupt my subconscious and feed it new information. If
Hmm.
I feed it new information long enough, years ago, let me tell you, I was a kind of a mischievous kind of kid, right?
Were
So
you
years
really now? Okay.
yeah, bro. Yeah, yeah. So if somebody would ride a bike near me, I would take a branch from a tree, right, and stick it in their front wheel,
Yeah. Right. Right.
right, and they go tumbling, right. So what happened? The branch interrupted that flow,
Yeah.
and it caused the guy to go flying off.
Right.
So it is in this work. If I don't introduce a branch to the patterns of the ways that you've been thinking, then it won't throw off of you the person that you have been. You will
Yeah.
continue to be
That's
that
good.
guy.
That's a
So
yeah.
wrestling with a sense of identity is paramount to then reshape the decisions that I'm making. The money decisions will determine how much money I have. I'll give you an example, man. Today, um, Sharice did a session with all the guys on tapping,
Okay.
right? So every single morning since I met your sister, I've been spending time tapping, right? Because a deregulated nervous system makes choices that are inconsistent with what we really want,
Hmm.
right? So if you say you want money, but if your system, your subconscious reality, and your nervous system is anxious about money, guess what you're going to do? You're going to make decisions that are consistent with you never having money. You
That's
will
right.
always be at a place of lack if you don't interrupt that. So tapping interrupts that,
Mm.
right? It interrupts that. So the reason why we got to wrestle with that is because I need every man to put on his crown to fully embody that and function from that place and not try to get to that place. There's a
Hmm. Yeah.
difference between working to get to that place and then working from that place. The
Yes.
ultimate goal is to get
Is to work
everybody
from there.
working from the position of a king and not to try to be a king.
Mm.
Being a king is a matter of being, it's not a matter of doing, it's a matter
Hmm.
of being. And
Hmm.
when I put on that character, I begin to make decisions that are very, very different.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, that was my last question.
Okay.
So awesome, awesome job. I do have a closing question, but for
Okay.
the purpose of asking questions regarding everything that we've spoken of, that was it.
Yeah.
But in closing,
Yes, sir.
and you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier when you were talking about ReManned being trademarked and how the name was going to carry on and so forth even after you're gone. So it's questions along those lines.
Yes.
When it's all said and done, what do
Yeah.
you hope the legacy of your life and the ReManned Project will be?
Yeah. I thought about this today, man.
Okay.
I just want to be known and remembered as a guy who was unapologetically in favor of men.
Mm.
A man who lived his life not perfectly,
Hmm.
but one who leveraged his failures to help another man, who was transparent enough to tell another man all of his failures so that that man wouldn't have to make the mistakes that he made. I want to be known as the guy who fully embodied the vision.
Hmm.
I have a fundamental issue, bro, with guys who and women this is probably the only time I will talk about women.
Oh, okay.
I have an issue with counselors, therapists, coaches, consultants who don't do what they tell everybody else to do.
Ooh, see there.
Right?
Hypocrite.
Like I have an issue with overweight fitness trainers.
Stop it.
Right? Like
Right.
there's not a whole lot you can tell me, my guy, when you are obese. Like what are you gonna say? Do as I say, not as I do. No, that
Come on,
what
man.
it is,
Right.
right?
Right.
I'm not gonna go, my wife's not gonna go to a hairstylist and her hairstylist hair ain't done.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to be the example of what I'm asking every other man to be.
Yeah.
And if I can accomplish that by the time I check out of here, I can then I will say this, bro. I'm gonna stand before him. All of us gonna stand before him. And when I stand before him, I want to hear him say, "Hey, my guy, you did what I asked you to do. Well done.
Yeah. Well done.
Appreciate it." Yeah, yeah. If I can get that, and if I don't, let me make you laugh. If I don't hear Jesus say, "Well done," after all the hell I've been through down here, going through, yes, it's gonna be some furniture moving, my guy.
You gonna turn the tables over yourself, huh?
I might swing on the Lord, man. If that guy don't say "well done," I'm swinging. He need to know on
Right.
day one, duck. If Donald come
Yeah.
up here and you tell him, well, he ain't do it, man, duck. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
sir. Yes, sir. Man, Donald, man, thank you so much.
Thank
I
you,
told you,
bro.
man, I was looking forward to this interview. It has really gone the way I expected it to. You have been a great guest. I think you brought a wealth of knowledge. I think you also opened up the eyes of some men who probably needed to hear it. You know, Be About It, man, Be About It podcast is about motivating and activating men of God to become, or men, to become all that they were created to be.
Yeah.
Here's something I didn't tell you. God gave me this a few months ago. Because what I do with my podcast is actually very similar with what you do with ReManned. But the difference is, I like to say, is this: I'm the fire starter. I'm the fluid. I'm the match. You're the log.
Got it. Got
Okay.
it.
That's the difference between what we do.
Yes, sir.
So I'm gonna get you motivated. I'm gonna get you activated into doing what you're supposed to do. But if you need to do some real work as to finding out who you are, I need you to holler at this man right here, Donald Morton. Okay? So I'm gonna wrap it up here, brother. Every man carries a crown, responsibility, identity, and purpose. The question isn't whether you were given one. The question is whether somewhere along the way you dropped it. The real work is in picking that crown back up. Donald Morton, thank you so much once again for being a part of Be About It podcast. I really appreciate you, man, and I look forward to doing more work with you and bringing some more brothers on board.
Absolutely, man.
All right, love and respect, my man. I appreciate you. Rock high.